So for today's review, I'm going to review these 3 IEMs I have in front of me. All of these are provided to us by 4Acoustics. It's a company, I guess, from Germany, if I'm not mistaken. It's a pro audio type of speaker company who recently just ventured towards making IEMs. So it's pretty much me reviewing their 3 units, which are in 3 models which are out right now and in 3 different price points. The STG-2 Plus is about 2.5 million rupiah, which is roughly about $195 or like $200. The STG-4 Plus is roughly about $350, about the price of a Blessing 2, maybe less, maybe a bit less, but that I think it's about $350. And the STG-8 Plus is going to be about around $700, but the price of the Moondrop S8s or the 4Audio Monarchs. And for the sake of this comparison, I have these 5 IEMs up here, which are the 4Audio Legacy 4s, the Tin Audio T4s, the Moondrop Blessing 2s, the Sony HIBY RX 1000, and the Sony M7 to help me, I guess, elaborate more on how these things sound like. So, in general, the TLDR of these IEMs, they are all relatively well-tuned IEMs. They are, simply in general well-tuned IEMs, much like the C Audio lineup. These kind of reminds me actually of the C Audio lineups, which no, they all have a general pretty good tuning. They leave quite a bit things lacking here and there, which we are going to go through later. So in here we have these 3 IEMs with those 2, and first we'll get to the bass. With the bass, in my opinion, for the 2 Plus, which is the cheapest, which is about $200, I think they don't have the most resolving type of bass. They don't have the deepest. They don't have the punchiest bass. They are quite elevated, much like the elevation you have in the 4Audio L4 Legacy 4s. But just like the Legacy 4s, the STG-4 Plus, the STG-2 Plus doesn't hit as hard as I would prefer them to hit, like, if that makes sense. They tend to sound just a bit hollow in their presentation. They don't sound as solid, as hard hitting like something in the Sony X1000, though I don't really think any IEMs could do things like the Sony X1000. It's not even in the class of the Moondrop Blessing 2's bass, which isn't really the most textured, although it is definitely more elevated in the 4Acoustics STG-2 Plus. But just the presentation of the quality of the bass is not that good, in my opinion. The so I guess that's it with the STG-2 Plus. I think the overall sound signature of the STG-2 Plus is kind of like the Tin T4s, just with a slightly thinner mid-range, probably a slightly more thinner mid-range, with a with better, I guess, resolution than the Tin T4s. With the 4Acoustics STG-4 Plus, we see significant bass improvements than the 2 Pluses. They have a better better depth, better punch, better texture, better extension, and overall just better bass. They do have quite a similar quantity. If you look at all of these three graphs, you would see that they actually are very similar in their tuning. However, the presentation of the bass in the STG-4 Plus is just significantly better in terms of their technical performance. They just sound much more impactful and dynamic rather than the STG-2 Plus. So better bass. So you can see there is an upgrade with the price increase between these two. So yeah, I guess that's it for the bass. It's very similarly tuned. By the way, for the switch, I haven't mentioned that these two IMs, the STG-4 Plus and the 8 Plus, has tuning switches, and this review is considering the tuning switch. I did quite an experiment with these tuning switches, and what I find is I actually prefer the tuning switch of the 4 Plus should be the first switch down, second switch up, and third switch down, and the 8 Plus would be the first switch up and the second switch down. I think the third switch down in the 4 Plus is mandatory, whilst the first switch up in the STG-8 Plus is mandatory, which I will explain why maybe a bit later. In the STG-4 Plus, in my opinion, the bass is just a significant improvement rather than the 2 Plus. Now we get to the bass in the STG-8 Plus, and somehow the bass here is worse than the STG-4 Plus. It's a very slight improvement of the STG-2 Plus. However, for some reason, they decided, well, if you have all of these three IMs, you ran a flashlight through them, you can see actually the configuration of drivers inside them. The STG-4 Plus has a different dynamic driver rather than these two. So the STG-2 Plus and the STG-8 Plus has the exact same dynamic driver. If by looks, I don't know if their types are actually same, but for looks and size, the color of the outer ring of the dynamic driver, like the ring behind the dynamic driver, is actually the same color. However, the STG-8 Plus is a bit bigger and just different. It's just a different dynamic driver, noticeably different, and it reflects through in the sound they produce. So I guess that's it. The bass in the STG-8 Plus is just slightly better in the STG-2 Plus, maybe because of the more bass armature driver doing the lower mid rather than these and here. So the dynamic driver could be more focused for the bass. I have no idea, but that's just my hypothesis of why here is a bit more textured. However, the presentation is also hollow and a bit elevated, and it also has that elevation. However, you can reduce the elevation on the first switch by turning it down. But what just happens if you do that? You lose the bass, because the quality of the dynamic driver here I don't think is on par with all the rest of its drivers. That just reducing the quantity of the bass just removes any shred of existence of punch and slam and dynamics of the bass. So it kind of needs that sort of elevation for the STG-8 Plus, which, if you notice, that I actually put if I pulled down the first switch of the STG-4 Plus, which actually reduced the bass, and I think with the first switch down, the 4 Plus, and the switch up in the 8 Plus, I think the 4 Plus still have more punch, more slam, and better dynamics. So I have no idea why they do that, because I think it's fucking dumb. But to be honest, I have contact with the person who supplied me with these, and he actually mentioned that in the future they might use the 4 Plus driver, dynamic driver for the 8 Plus, and I think you should wait for it because it's pretty worth it in my opinion. The upgrade is worth it. For the mid-range, I think in the they all have a similar type of presentation in the mid-range. If you would think what kind of mid-range they have, I think it's more to the presentation of their mid-range is similar to how the L4s or the Blessing 2s or the T4s present their mid-range. You have that harmonish type of curve in the mid-range. So that's just the general presentation. It's quite pleasant. It's quite easy to listen, I guess. There are no present wonk in the mid-range. Very well tuned mid-range in my opinion. With the STG-2 Plus, the difference between these three are the STG-2 Plus is the most thinnest out of all the threes. The STG-4 Plus is kind of the middle of the road, and the STG-8 Plus the warmest mid-range. I think, in my opinion, the tonality of the mid-range, I prefer the STG-8 Plus. It's a bit thicker, it's a bit warmer sounding. However, the 4 Plus has noticeably more detail in the lower frequencies, lower mid-range frequencies. Maybe it's because of the quality of the dynamic driver it's using also. So yeah. And about the treble region, now this is where it gets interesting. The 2 Plus here has quite a forward treble presentation. It's still a very pleasant and well-tuned type of treble presentation. However, I don't think that they are sharp nor shouty nor anything. Maybe just a bit. Maybe I do actually notice quite a bit of elevation here. However, it's a tastefully done elevation, and I would be okay with it. It's some like the L4's type of treble elevation, but not the I wouldn't categorize it as very similar to the Audio L4, because the Audio L4 has quite that lower treble type of emphasis. However, the STG-2 Plus, although has I think it's slightly more contoured, or the it's not as jarring as I don't think the L4 is that jarring anyways. But yeah, they both have elevated mid treble in general. It's quite similar yet quite different at the same time. However, in the STG-4 Plus, you would have a more significant lower treble boost, lower to mid treble boost there. No, actually you have that mid treble boost. The lower treble boost would be less significant in the 4 Plus, but it has that mid treble peaks at the 7 to 8K region, which if you don't turn down the third switch would kill this IEM instantly, in my opinion. So yeah, turn down the switch, and it actually is one of the most pleasant type of treble presentation of the three. I guess it's I think it's in the safe and nice position if you turn down the third switch. So yeah, just turn down the fucking third switch. The STG-8 Plus, I think it's you can actually play with the switch more, I guess. They graph very similarly. They do have the same peak as the 4 Plus. However, with the 8 Plus, you can I don't think you would have a lot of that sharpness come through. some reason. It's not that intense. And third, although I do still prefer turning down the second switch to reduce any bits of sibilance or like tinniness, I guess, because with the second switch up, you would notice that they don't sound as natural as I would prefer them to sound. So turning down the second switch would I guess produce better, more accurate type of presentation. So we're gonna talk after the trifecta. I guess we're gonna talk about a little bit more with their general tuning and tonality. I think the STG-4 Plus is a very safe pick in terms of tuning. If you've heard the audio Yumi, this might have a bit more bass and treble energy, it's a bit more V-shaped type of sound. The STG-4 Plus is also quite a bit V-shaped, though it is not as V-shaped as the STG-2 Plus. I think it's a bit more to the V-shape of the V-Audio Legacy 4s, about a bit more neutral with bass boost rather than a full-on V-shape sounding IEM. And the STG-8 Plus with the both switches down actually sounds very reference-like sound. But with the both switches up, it turns V-shaped. Though with the first switch down, I perceive a bit less everything in the bass. So just go neutral with bass boost with the STG-8 Plus, in my opinion. So yeah, I with the accessories you get these. I don't know if it's like fully. You would fully get these. You'd also get like a quality control type of sticker. I don't think it's a sticker. I think it's some kind of oh shit, what the hell? Oh yeah, this quality control pass from 4Acoustics. You also get a set of ear tips coming from them. 3 separate sizes. The ear tips are just regular ear tips, I guess. The case is pretty cool though. It's pretty sleek design. It's made out of faux leather, I guess. It's quite like the Tinty 4 type of case, I guess. It's also magnetic, so very elegant looking case, definitely. The technical capabilities, with the STG-2 Plus, if you're going from the STG-2 Plus to the STG-4 Plus, you would definitely notice a lot of technical improvement in terms of resolution and texturing and layering and etc. So yeah, with the STG-2 Plus, I would expect you to look at the technical performance of the V-Audio L4. Though I still think that the V-Audio L4 has its edge on creating a more 3D-esque space. If someone say that the V-Audio doesn't have soundstage, I would say that it's okay to be wrong, I guess. The V-Audio as a solid presentation of soundstage, a 3D type of stage, in my opinion. And the STG-4 Plus doesn't really have that. STG-2 Plus, sorry, doesn't really have that much staging prowess, like depth prowess, as the V-Audio Legacy 4s. However, the detail retrieval is only slightly better in the V-Audio Legacy 4s, and the V-Audio Legacy 4s is a bit more expensive than the 2 Plus, so yeah. However, I think this is quite a side grade. It's actually not a very good side grade. It's a slight downgrade from the L4, in my opinion. And though with the Yume's, even though the Yume has superior tonal balance, I would pick these over the Yume's because it has better resolution, it has better bass impact and texturing and everything else. So yeah, the Yume's just sound kind of blunt, in my opinion. The 4Acoustics 4 Plus in my opinion, is good, decent in every step of its technical prowess, though jumping from the 2 Plus to 4 Plus is a quite noticeable, significant upgrade. The jump from 4 Plus and 8 Plus, I don't think you should jump from 4 Plus to 8 Plus, at least for now, because with that difference in the lower frequencies quality, I don't think the jump here would be recommended, at least for my standards. You do get a wide, large stage of the 8 Plus. I think the width of the stage is quite similar to the X1000 or this Sony M7, which is actually pretty impressive. It's wider than the Blessing 2s. However, I don't think the resolution and the definition, especially at the lower frequencies, are even on par with the 4 Plus. The higher frequencies, however, is more detailed in the 8 Plus. So this is where we're going to go with coherency. Though in general, I don't think the price jump here is logical, because this is a bit quite more expensive. So in general, the 2 Plus is like half the plus of the price of the 4 Plus, and the 4 Plus is half the price of the 8 Plus. So yeah, unless if you're just looking for reference sound, maybe the 8 Plus is a worthy upgrade, or if you're looking for treble detail, probably. But still there are a lot more better IMs with reference sound at this price range, if you're gonna go with these. Unless if they upgraded the dynamic driver, then I don't think you should buy this before that. So yeah, with the now with this, I kind of lost the segue right there. We're going to talk about coherency, which is quite a problem with these three, because all of these three have that problem, which is called the treble, the BA timbre, and problems with coherency with detail. So there are two problems: BA timbre and detail coherence. With the STG-2 Plus and the STG, well, all of them has treble timbre, but all of them has BA timbre. The STG-2 Plus has the most noticeably general BA timbre out of the three. What I think of why this happens, because it has the fewest bounce armatures, so the two bounce armatures here need to work a lot harder than these two. The STG-4 Plus still has that straining type of bounce armature timbre, and the STG-8 Plus have a little bit less straining. However, it has a bit grain up top. Like it's not grain, it's like shimmer quality up top, especially if you turn on the second switch up. The BA timbre is actually not that bad in the 8 Plus, anyway, so it might be a reasonable upgrade from here to here, but it's just exactly the same from the upgrade from here to here, because this sound very BA. It's kind of like the sound of the V-Audio Legacy 4s. If you notice, the Legacy 4 is very, very, very BA sounding, which is the only problem I have with the Legacy 4. That and the lack of a bass impact in the Legacy 4, which is kind of the same like the STG-2 Plus, though I still do prefer the tonality of the Legacy 4 than the STG-2 Plus. So yeah, with that, if you have problem with BA timbre, I don't think any of these IM will suffice. Although if you have problem with BA timbre, why the fuck would you look for a mostly BA IMs in the first place? So I don't think the IM is to blame for this. However, with the detail coherency, it is much noticeable in the STG-8 Plus because of that distinct contrast between the less resolving, the beta, the shit ass dynamic driver against the CAD balanced armature we have here. So the coherence here with detail, you would notice very fast when you listen to music. Like, for example, Giorgio Moroder, Giorgio Moroder from the Daft Punk. You would notice that stark differences of the voice of Giorgio and the ambience, or like the music behind the voice, because Giorgio have a very deep gravelly voice, and they don't sound as defined and as detailed as the ambient sounds or the music behind the sound, the voice, I guess. So with the STG-8 Plus, that difference is actually quite jarring, and I don't really like that. It's not as apparent in the STG-4 Plus. The STG-4 Plus, in my opinion, has the best coherence between the dynamic driver and the bounce armature, because actually I think the detail up top is not as bad as I would expect them, considering the dynamic driver they have. The detail on the dynamic driver, if you listen to the bass and you listen to the treble, I don't think the difference of the STG-2 Plus here I don't think you would expect that the treble would be that much detailed if you compare them to the bass, just like the STG-8 Plus, which is much more significant because of the difference in quality is so prevalent here. So yeah, all of them, I don't think that this company is ready to challenge the likes of Moondrop or 4Audio. However, for example, the STG-2 Plus is not on par with the L4 in my opinion, and the STG-4 Plus is actually, I think the STG-4 Plus is in the correct price. I would price it at this price, I guess, if I would make it. It has effort put into it and has quality type of driver, type of sound it can produce. It's very pleasant in tonality. Every of them is pleasant in tonality. Though with the Blessing, I think it's actually the Blessing 2s, which is just too cheap for its own good, for everyone's good, for its company's good. I think the Blessing 2 is just too cheap, in my opinion. I think this is a perfect purchase if you're looking for a Blessing 2s, which are a bit less thin, a bit thicker type of Blessing 2s, but you don't want that type of thickness you get from buying a BGVP DM8. This is a perfect sideways to the DM8s. I think they are about at the same class. This has, in my opinion, better, superior tonality, I guess. Here with the STG-8 Plus, I don't think it competes with anything yet. Maybe with an updated dynamic driver it might will, but for now I don't think the detail retrieval is on par with even the M7s, which is $500. It's a bit cheaper, or the X1000 definitely not yet on par with that. Maybe a bit on par with the Blessing 2s, because the upper frequencies might be slightly lighter, maybe slightly more detailed in the 8 Plus. However, the lower frequency is much more detailed in the Blessing 2s. Even against the 4 Plus, I don't think it's just a significant upgrade in the detail department. Maybe in the upper frequencies, yes, of course, it's a bit more detailed here, but the lower frequencies, no. So get the 4 Plus. I can recommend the 4 Plus if you're looking for a thicker sounding Blessing 2s with more bass, harder hitting bass impact, and tuning switches. I guess you can make them sound very reference like. Yeah, I guess the 4 Plus is recommendable. I think it's in the correct price point. I think it's quite respectable type of sound signature in its price point, just like the DM8s. Though I think I would prefer these over the DM8s. That's it for the video. I'm sorry if it's too long. I would be more in depth, but it'll be like 15 minutes if I go more in depth than this. See you next time. Godspeed.